Hello class, today let's go over section 1.6. We do have a few problems which we will incorporate all the ideas we learned so far. Now here we are in example 1, we are solving by quadratic equation. We want to use factoring, that's why we want to make one side 0. For that reason, let's subtract 12x squared from both sides. Cancel out. We got 0, which we want in factoring. So 4x to the power 4 minus 12x squared. We can factor 4x squared out. What we are left with? X squared minus 3. This equals to 0. Then if the product of two things is 0, then one of them must be 0. So either 4x squared equals to 0. Let me write either. Or x squared minus 3 equals to 0, and divide both sides by 4. That gives x squared equals to 0, which gives x equals to plus minus 0, but technically that is 0. And this is the, again, quadratic equation just with two terms. That's why square root property would be easier. So x squared equals to 3, and take the square root on both sides. That will give x equals to either plus minus of square root of 3. And if you want to check the answer, you simply plug back, then you will get the answer. Now, the problem number 2. Again, we are trying to use factoring idea, so we want to make one side 0. So let's subtract 8x and 12 from both sides. So this cancel out, so we end up with 0. On the left hand side, there are few terms. In fact, none of them are like terms, so we have to write all of them. 2x cubed plus 3x squared minus 8x minus 12 is equals to 0. And in previous classes, what we learned, if we have 4 terms, then usually we go with factoring by grouping. So in the first group, we can take x squared out. We are left with 2x plus 3. In the second group, we do have negative 4 out. So we got 2x again plus 3. This equals to 0. In these two terms, 2x plus 3 is common. We take that out. And we are left with x squared minus 4. And then the same idea, if we have product of two things is 0, then either we should have 2x plus 3 equals to 0, or we should have x squared minus 4 equals to 0. Now let's go to the previous one, the linear one. And if you subtract 3 from both sides and divide it by 2, that will give x equals to negative 3 over 2. Now here, add 4 on both sides, because it has just two terms, so that square root property would be easier. Cancel out. So x squared equals to 4. We are interested to find x. Take the square root on both sides. So we got x equals to plus minus 2. And if you want to check the answer, you simply plug those three values. Negative 3 over 2, x equals to positive 2, and negative 2 back into the equation. Left hand side and right hand side should be equal. Now the next thing we will learn is how to solve radical equation. And the problem with the radical, you always want to isolate, and the idea is to get rid of radical, you square. And if you don't isolate and square it, radical is not going anywhere. That's the reason we have to isolate radical. For that reason, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. Cancel out. So square root over x plus 3. This equals to, now in fact, the previous expression was the square root over x plus 3 equals x minus 3. Now we isolate it. Let's do square on both sides. Square root and power 2 square cancel out. Left hand side we end up with x minus 3. Right hand side, x minus 3 square means it is x minus 3, x minus 3. If you pull this right hand side out, you will get x square minus 6x plus 9. Again, you want to make one side 0. For that reason, you subtract x, you subtract 3 from both sides. Subtract x, subtract 3 from both sides. This cancel out, so we got 0. This equals to x square minus 7x plus 6. We end up with quadratic equation. One side is 0. If factorization is possible, we do factorization. If not, then we can use, in the worst case, we can use quadratic formula. And here, product is 6. Product is 6. Sum is negative 7. So the factorization is quite easy. X minus 6, x minus 1. So that will give x minus 6 equals to 0 gives x equals to 6, or x minus 1 equals to 0 gives x equals to 1. Now here we do have to answer, but if you plug back, then x equals to 1 will not satisfy the equation. Left hand side and right hand side will not be the equal. So this is not the answer. So the only answer we do have is x equals to 6. If you plug x equals to 1, then left hand side will not be equals to the right hand side. That's why we do have only one solution. Now problem number 4, a little bit complicated. The reason is we do have two radicals. Let's try to move this radical on the right hand side so that we will have less complicated expression, and there is no other logic. X minus 3 cancel out. Square root over x plus 5 is equals to 2 plus square root over x minus 3. And we always want to get rid of radical. That's why let's do square on both sides. This straightforward. Cancel out. We got x plus 5. But on the right hand side, we have to multiply. We have to do FOIL with 2 plus square root over x minus 3. 2 plus square root over x minus 3. Now let's do that. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times that multiplies 2 times square root over x minus 3. Square root over x minus 3 multiplies 2. 2 times square root over x minus 3. Square root over x minus 3 times square root over x minus 3. That is just x minus 3. Again, radical is not going anywhere, still there. So let's isolate radical terms and the expression without radical. So x plus 5 on the left hand side. So there is x. This 4 combining with negative 3 is positive 1 plus 2 of those kinds. So it becomes 4 square root over x minus 3. Subtract x, subtract 1. Subtract x, subtract 1. Because we want to isolate expression with radical. Cancel out, x cancel out, so we got 4. This equals to 4 square root over x minus 3. Because we want to isolate, we can divide both sides by 4. Cancel out. So what we got on the left hand side? 1. On the right hand side, we got x minus 3. Then we square on both sides because we want to get rid of that radical. So this cancel out. We got x minus 3. This equals to 1. But we want to solve for x. Add 3 on both sides. So that gives, cancel out, x is 4. Now if you plug x equals to 4 back into the equation, that will satisfy the equation. That means x equals to 4 is the solution. Now here we do have equation with rational exponent. Let's isolate the x terms and then the constant. For that reason, I'm gonna add 25 on both sides because it has just 2 terms. Cancel out. So 5x to the power 3 over 2 equals to 25. Divide both sides by 5. Cancel out. So x to the power 3 halves equals to 5. And as we do, if we had square root for x, we do square. If we have x square, we do the square root. That means we do the reciprocal power. So that means we do the reciprocal power on both sides. 2 over 3, 2 over 3. So we 3 cancel out, 2 cancel out. So we got x. So 5 raised to the power 2 3. Exactly the reciprocal. Number 6, because it has 2 terms, that's why we want to isolate. Add 8 on both sides. Cancel out. X to the power 2/3 equals to positive 4. And to get rid of this power fraction, we do the reciprocal. 4 to the power 3 over 2. 2 cancel out. 3 cancel out. X equals to 4 to the power 3 over 2. And x to the 4 to the power 3 halves, that is 8. So x equals to 8 is the correct answer. Now here, if you see, we do have trinomial, equation with 3 terms, but the power is 4. So we have to do something. So we end up with quadratic equation. For that reason, I'm gonna assume x squared equals to y. Let's suppose. Why am I supposing? Because if I suppose this, so that I end up with quadratic equation. If I end up with quadratic equation, that will be way easier to solve. So that means x squared is square of x squared, so it is y squared minus 5y plus 6. This equals to 0. See, way easier equation than it was before. So if you factorize, it is y minus 2, y minus 3 equals to 0. That gives y minus 2 equals to 0, or y minus 3 equals to 0. If you solve for y, that gives y equals to 2. If you solve for y here, that gives y equals to 3. But y is not the original variable. That is the variable we suppose. So let's go back to x. So x squared equals to 2. And if you take the square root on both sides, that gives x equals to plus minus square root over 2. Here, y is x squared equals to 3. But we are interested to find x. Take the square root on both sides. That gives x equals to plus minus square root over 3. That's how we solve. See the advantage knowing to solve quadratic equation. We could solve the equation of highest power also. Now the same issue with problem number 8. I'm going to suppose y equals to x to the power 1/3, so that I can reduce this equation to the quadratic equation. 3 x to the power 2/3 means x to the power 1/3 has power 2. That's why it becomes y squared minus 11y minus 4 is equals to 0. Now, how to factorize? 3y squared, product is negative 12, sum is negative 11. That means negative 12y plus y minus 4, this equals to 0. As to the grouping, 3y we can factor out, y minus 4 we can factor out 1, y minus 4, this equals to 0. From those two terms, y minus 4 we can factor out, 3y plus 1 equals to 0. Again, product of two things is 0, then one of them should be 0. So, y minus 4 equals to 0 or 3y plus 1, this equals to 0. Let's go with the y minus 4 first. It gives y equals to 4, but y is not the original variable. Y is the variable we introduced. So x to the power 1/3 equals to 4. Guys, do you recall? We just have to use the reciprocal of the power. That's why to get rid of power 1/3, we do the power 3 on both sides. So that cancel out. It gives x equals to 3 to the 3 power of the 4 is 4 times 4, 16 times 4, 64. Now here, let's subtract 1, let's subtract 1. That gives 3y equals to negative 1. So that gives y equals to negative 1/3. Again, y is not the original variable. It is x to the power 1/3. This equals to negative 1/3. We do the power 3 on both sides so that we will be able to get rid of 1/3 power. So x equals to, if you multiply negative 1/3 3 times, negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1, that is negative 1. If you multiply 3 times, that will give 27. That's the final answer. And x plus 4 was the another answer. Now here, it is about how to solve absolute value equation. And here is a very good information. If absolute value of x equals to 5, then we do have two choices. Either x should be 5 or negative 5, because absolute value of negative number is also positive. So we do have two options here. 2x minus 1 should be either positive 11 or that 2x minus 1 is negative 11. And this is the baby equations to solve. So add 1 on both sides, cancel out, 2x equals to 12, divide both sides by 2, that gives x equals to 6. Now here, add 1 on both sides, cancel out, so we got 2x equals to negative 11, adding 1 is negative 10, divide both sides by 2, that gives x equals to negative 5. Number 10, same idea, just we have to isolate the absolute value first. So let's add 20 on both sides, cancel out. So 4 times 1 minus 2x equals to 20. Again, we couldn't isolate completely because there is 4 is coming, 4 is multiplying. That's why we have to divide, cancel out. Absolute value of 1 minus 2x, this equals to 5. If something has absolute value 5, then we do have two choices. Either (1 minus 2x equals to 5) or 1 minus 2x equals to negative 5. Now let's solve. Subtract 1, subtract 1. Negative 2x equals to 4. Divided both sides by negative 2. That gives x equals to negative 2. Here, subtract 1, cancel out. Negative 2x equals to negative 6. Divide both sides by negative 2. Cancel out. That gives x equals to negative 6 divided by negative 2. That is positive 3.